Long ago, in a sun-drenched land where the sands shimmered like gold beneath the endless sky, there lived a man named Abraham, whose heart was bound by faith and whose soul whispered with the promises of the Most High. For years, Abraham had wandered with his family through valleys and hills, guided by a voice he could not see but felt deep within him, a voice that promised descendants as countless as the stars that twinkled each night above his tent. Yet, the years had been long, and time had painted silver streaks in his hair. His beloved wife, Sarah, had also grown older, and the world around them whispered doubts that even the heart of Abraham might sometimes hear. But one morning, as the horizon blushed with the first light of dawn, a miraculous event unfolded. Sarah laughed, a laugh that was not born of jest, but of wonder, for in her arms was a child she had long thought impossible. This child was Isaac, the son through whom the promise of generations would continue, and his cries filled the air with the purest music of life, echoing over the hills and mingling with the rustling leaves of ancient trees. Sarah looked upon her son, and tears of joy mingled with laughter on her face. "God has brought me laughter," she said, the warmth of the morning sun catching in her eyes, "and everyone who hears of it will laugh with me." The child's tiny fingers wrapped around her own as if to say, "I am the living promise." Abraham's faith rewarded. As the days passed, Abraham tended to his household with renewed vigor. He was a man of faith, steadfast even in the face of uncertainties. And now, his faith bore tangible fruit. Abraham called the boy Isaac, a name that would forever remind the world of laughter, joy, and divine fulfillment. The laughter that had once been uncertain in his heart was now inseparable from the sound of life itself. Abraham's devotion and obedience were reflected in the morning routines and daily labors of the camp. He would wake before dawn, walking among his flocks, speaking quietly to God in prayers that rose like incense to the sky. And each time he looked upon Isaac, he was reminded of a promise that had been whispered in the shadows of his past, an assurance that faith, even when it seems delayed, is never in vain. A feast of joy. When Isaac was weaned, a festival of great joy erupted in Abraham's household. It was a time of laughter, of feasting, and of gratitude. The aroma of roasted meat and freshly baked bread filled the tents, mingling with the scent of fragrant herbs. Family, friends, and travelers gathered, their eyes sparkling with wonder and admiration. They rejoiced not merely at the child, but at the unfolding of God's promise, a reminder that life can blossom in the most unexpected of seasons. Abraham's heart swelled with happiness, but alongside it lingered a wisdom born from years of wandering and waiting. He knew the road ahead would have trials, yet he understood that this moment of celebration was a sign that hope, nurtured with patience, can bear the sweetest fruit. The tension in the camp. Yet, life's tales often weave threads of tension amidst their moments of joy. Hagar, the maidservant who had borne Abraham a son named Ishmael, watched the celebrations with a heart shadowed by fear and uncertainty. Her son, too, was part of Abraham's household, and she wondered if there was enough blessing in the world for both boys. Her eyes, wide with concern, traced the laughter of Sarah and Isaac, and a storm of jealousy brewed quietly in her mind. One day, unable to bear the quiet tension any longer, Sarah spoke to Abraham. Her voice was calm but firm, carrying the weight of years of longing and hope. "Cast out this maidservant and her son," she said, "for Ishmael shall not inherit alongside my son Isaac." Abraham's heart was torn. The boy was his own flesh and blood, yet the command carried the unmistakable authority of God's promise. Abraham prayed silently, seeking guidance, and his spirit wrestled with sorrow and obedience alike. God's assurance. Before Abraham could speak further, the Most High spoke to him in a vision, a gentle voice that cut through the uncertainty like sunlight through morning mist. "Do not be distressed about the boy or your maidservant," God said, "listen to Sarah, for through Isaac shall your line be named. But I will also bless Ishmael, making him a great nation, for he too is your offspring." With these words, Abraham's heavy heart was lifted. He understood that God's blessings were not finite, and that divine providence could honor both promises in ways beyond human understanding. It was a lesson of faith, trust, and the eternal balance between justice and mercy. Hagar and Ishmael in the wilderness. Soon, with heavy hearts and tearful eyes, Abraham and Hagar parted ways. Hagar, carrying her young son Ishmael, wandered into the harsh expanse of the wilderness. The sun scorched the land, and the winds carried sand like tiny needles against her skin. Their water ran low, and despair began to creep into Hagar's heart. She set Ishmael beneath a bush, unable to watch the boy suffer, and cried aloud to the heavens. It was then that an angel of God called to her from above, a voice that cut through the silence and the burning heat. "Hagar, fear not," the angel said. "God has heard the cries of the boy. Lift him up and take him by the hand. For he shall become a great nation." Hagar's eyes filled with tears, but now they shimmered with hope rather than despair. She lifted Ishmael, and the wilderness, once a place of suffering, became the backdrop of divine promise and miraculous survival. The well of life. As if the earth itself had received the angel's command, a well of water appeared before them, bubbling with clarity and coolness. Hagar and Ishmael drank deeply, the water quenching not only their thirst but also their fear. The boy's laughter returned, mingling with the whispers of the desert wind and the gentle song of distant birds. It was a moment of renewal, a vivid testament that life, even in the harshest conditions, can flourish under God's watchful care. Ishmael's growth and blessing. Time passed, and Ishmael grew strong in body and spirit, wandering the wilderness as a skilled archer and a resilient soul. God's blessing was evident in the boy's growth, and soon the land around him was filled with communities that would honor his name and continue his line. Ishmael became the father of 12 princes, fulfilling the angel's promise and illustrating the infinite capacity of divine providence. Abraham, meanwhile, continued to nurture Isaac, watching him grow into a child of promise, laughter, and light. The family's legacy began to unfold like the petals of a rare desert flower, delicate yet enduring, shaped by faith, trial, and the unyielding hand of God. Reflection on the journey. Genesis 21 is not merely a story of birth or survival, it is a tale of hope realized, of promises kept against the odds, and of the intricate balance between human action and divine guidance. From Abraham and Sarah, we learn the importance of patience and faith, even when the years seem long and the fulfillment of dreams seems impossible. Their laughter at Isaac's birth reminds us that joy often emerges from the unexpected, and that God's timing surpasses our understanding. From Hagar and Ishmael, we see the lessons of resilience, trust, and divine care. Even in the wilderness of despair, where the sun beats down mercilessly and resources seem absent, God's provision can appear in the most astonishing ways. Hagar's encounter with the angel shows that no cry for help is too small, no sorrow too deep, and that mercy and blessing can reach the most overlooked corners of the world. Finally, the chapter teaches us about the coexistence of multiple promises. The tension between Isaac and Ishmael, resolved not by human might but by divine guidance, reminds us that life is capable of holding multiple blessings, and that jealousy and fear must be tempered by faith and trust in higher wisdom. In essence, Genesis 21 is a story of laughter and tears, of miracles and trials, of hope fulfilled and new paths forged. It invites us to witness the beauty of life unfolding, to trust in promises yet unseen, and to recognize that joy, faith, and divine providence are intimately woven into the very fabric of existence.